So, hello and welcome to the SME Data Podcast with Data Cubes. My name's Helen Ward, your host, and I am here today with Alex Cosgrove from AdLib. Alex, would you like to take a moment just to introduce yourself and tell everyone about your role and what you do?
Yeah, sure. So my name's Alex Cosgrove. So I head up the data insight and analytics recruitment at AdLib Recruitment. Been here for about 4 years and mainly support businesses in and around the Southwest with their data needs from a recruitment perspective. And we also provide advice to startups and companies looking to move to the Southwest, especially Bristol, Bath region, to help them understand like the talent market and what they can get and what sort of skills are around, salaries, all that kind of stuff. And just supporting from a general sort of talent acquisition angle. But yeah, I work with companies who still use Excel and spreadsheets, and right through to those with advanced machine learning and data science teams and sort of everything in between. So I often see the sort of journey towards data maturity and becoming data driven from a strategic viewpoint. And yeah, a lot of the time it's spent helping companies understand what they need and helping them find it, really. So
Yeah,
that's
for
me.
sure. Cool. Okay, thanks for that. So I guess there's two sort of sides to this. There's kind of like the recruitment agency side, that you're sort of understanding of the market and the needs and the demands and that journey as you've just described, and also on the side of AdLib and what you're doing about your data-driven journey. So maybe we can sort of touch on the challenges that you feel that you've encompassed on both sides, if we can.
Yeah, of course, that sounds good. So yeah, I'm a senior manager here at AdLib. I'm part of that sort of senior management team, so I do have an input into some of the strategic decision making here.
Mm.
In general, we could probably do a lot more with our data than we do at the moment. And I'd say the main challenge for us is data quality, accuracy. We've got 30 odd consultants entering data into a CRM platform on a daily basis, and if that data set was complete and totally accurate and the quality was there, I think we could do a lot more than we're doing at the moment. We use a lot of spreadsheets ourselves, Google Sheets, things like that. We are looking at bringing in a new CRM at some point, which has got a really nice sort of analytics part of it, which will be better for us to be able to get a better sight overall and insight into kind of our activities and what we need to be doing more. So that is something we're looking at sort of down the line. I think once we've got that new CRM in place and we do a data migration to kind of implement that, we'll understand more about where our gaps are and we'll have a
Mm-hmm.
better ability to bring together things within this platform. And I think at
Mm-hmm.
that point we would start kind of looking at what else can we be doing with this and seeing what value we can take from the analytics we get from that point, and seeing what more we can do and how we can push that forward. So that's
Mm-hmm.
kind of where we're at the moment. We could be a lot more data driven, in my opinion, than we are. But yeah, I think there's a few steps we need to take before we kind of get to where we need to be, so we could have a conversation with someone like yourself and say, can you come and have a look at what we've got now? It's in better shape.
Yeah.
And what else could we be doing? So yeah, if that's I guess from an AdLib internal perspective.
Okay. And can I just ask what you think those steps are in terms of getting you into a place where you feel like you're ready to be more data driven?
Sure. I think firstly, just sort of understanding what we want to know. We've got different roles in the company within marketing, within finance, and within the management team who all have slightly different data needs and want to know different sort of information that would be useful
Yeah.
to each sort of party. So I think, first of all, understanding what everyone would want in an ideal world and why, and then have
Mm-hmm.
that sort of discussion first. And when we've sort of had that discussion, have a look into, how we're going to get there and how we're going to achieve that and, how we can measure what we'd get as a return on investment as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so you know that obviously what success looks like and how you can measure it and be able to, put sense into the numbers, which is what we're looking to achieve from being data driven.
Yeah,
Okay,
absolutely.
and then from the other side, how do you find it sort of reflects in the sort of broader market where you're placing talent?
It's really interesting because I speak to so many different types of companies, from sort of startups through to multinationals. It's really interesting for me personally to understand where companies are on this data driven journey, and
Mm,
it's quite surprising sometimes when I speak to bigger corporates and they have like three people in a BI function across sort of thousands of employees, and you're kind of scratching your head thinking, why are you only doing this? You can do so much more, and surely it would have a really big impact. And then I speak to startups who go straight into having a cloud based distributed data platform with advanced tools like Alteryx or other reporting like functionality that they can get some really good insights out of. So yeah, I find it really interesting understanding sort of where on the sort of data maturity journey each company is, and then being able to understand the right sort of person to go in there.
Hmm.
If a company is just using spreadsheets and they've not done anything else ever, then you need someone who's quite happy to go in with that low level of maturity and build it all up. Some people
Yeah.
want to go in when it's already all done. Other people want to
Hmm.
go in and take companies on that sort of journey. So I think when you're looking at what talent's right for what company, it's always about sort of matching up what those candidates really kind of want to do in the first sort of 6 to 12 months in the role versus what the company needs.
Hmm.
We've placed data scientists into companies that don't even have a data warehouse, and down the line, that those candidates come back to us and say, why did they hire me? They're not ready. They haven't got any data, and I'm just sitting here cleaning massive data sets, and they kind of get
Hmm.
itchy. So I think it's really important for companies to hire people in who really want to go on whatever journey it is that company, what stage they're at. I
Yeah.
think that's really important because otherwise people just get disappointed and start twiddling
Yeah.
their thumbs and think, I'm
That's
not
it.
using my skills, and no, I need to go somewhere else so I don't get rusty. So
Yeah.
that's kind of a big thing we notice and really try and get right with our clients.
And how do you do that? Because it's quite a difficult conversation to have, to sort of, look at currently where they are and where they want to go, and to get that insight from an outside perspective.
Yeah, I think it comes from two ways. Like, firstly, really having a very detailed qualification call with a company to understand, where they are at,
Yeah.
and really understanding what technology they've got in place, what people they have in place, and where they want to go within the next 6 to 12 months. And then, similarly, when we're working on a specific opportunity and we need, someone to come in who is willing to take them on a journey like that,
Hmm.
it just means we've got to speak to lots of people to find the right person who is at that, and that's what they want from the next role. So it's a case of being really thorough when you're talking to clients, and then really kind of scouring the market and speaking to lots of people, not just people on paper who could do the job, but really
Hmm.
digging deep into motivations and what's important to people in terms of where they go next and what they'll be doing.
Yeah, cool. Okay. And then what do you sort of see the difference between, obviously, we're thinking specifically about SMEs today. Do you think that it differs between like a smaller company to a larger company? What difference do you see?
Yeah, I do see a difference, and I think it comes down to the people at that sort of director level.
Mm.
If people in the C-suite and the sort of director level get data and they get the value of it and they get the drivers of it, then they're more likely to do this stuff quicker. SME companies whose senior teams don't see the value in data will often be the ones that have left behind a little bit, and
Mm.
will be jumping on this not when it's potentially too late, but way behind the curve, and they could have been getting value from their data way earlier.
Yeah.
And then you get kind of companies that from the SME level that are very mature on this stuff, and then they're looking to see how they can monetize their data, and that's kind of where we
Mm.
see the sort of more advanced side of things. So I think, again, it really comes down to that senior leadership team and how bought in they are to the benefits of data and analytics, and if they get the return on investment that if you bring in a
Yeah.
data analyst, if that's going to cost us between sort of 20 and 50k a year, how are we going to see the benefit of that and how we're going to measure it. I think a lot of companies fall a bit short when it comes to measuring the return on investment on their analytics staff,
Hmm.
and then that becomes more difficult to sort of grow their teams if they can't show that tangible benefit.
Yeah. So what else apart from ROI then would actually help overcome the challenges? Or do you
Education, I
think it just
think,
comes
like
down to that?
data
Yeah.
literacy, I think is a big one. Like,
Hmm.
um, when I'm talking to senior people in SME companies, I can quickly kind of really ascertain how much they sort of know about the subject when I talk to
Yeah.
them, whether they're sort of glossed over when I'm talking about, insight and reporting and predictive analytics, or whether they're like really excited about it and the
Yeah.
prospect of it. So I think massively comes down to education and data literacy, and those companies where they're really clued up at the top, they get it,
Hmm.
and they
Hmm.
know that to have competitive edge over the people in their sector, if they use data for strategic decision making across the board in sort of wherever they can, they should prosper,
Yeah. Yeah.
and potentially gain that competitive edge.
Okay. And what opportunities do you see? Obviously, you sort of say if they get it, and it's great, and you can have that conversation. If you don't, it's a
Mm.
bit more educational. So, what kind of key opportunities do you see in the SME space?
So I think for those companies where they don't really get it and they're not really quite there yet, I see, someone like Hell's going in there from a data cube perspective and, just doing an hour consultation just to understand, what their current setup is and what they can be doing. I think that
Hmm.
is really, really useful because there's no sort of obligation or charge at that point, but,
Yeah.
they could come up with something at that meeting that would be a bit of a game changer if they implemented it. So I
Yeah.
think, raising awareness, helping, free events that help senior people learn about the art of the
Hmm.
possible. I think that's
Hmm.
really, really good, and really useful for, you know, getting these SMEs understanding the potential there, and what they
Yeah.
can be doing with their data and all the value that sits within it.
Hmm.
You might have run your SME for 10 years, and you've got 10 years of really, really valuable data there to understand, where you should be spending money, where you should be making investment, where you should grow.
Hmm.
So,
Hmm.
helping companies unlock the value in their data, I think, is key. And companies like, like Data Cubes are really good at being able to help them do that.
Great, thanks. So, where do you see the biggest demand sitting now, and how do you see that's changing over the next kind of 3, 6, 9, 12 months?
Sure. I'd say for older companies, the biggest demand we're seeing is moving onto the cloud, like big data migrations and, upgrading from SQL Server on-prem to sitting in Azure, GCP, or AWS. That's kind of triggering probably about half of our vacancies that we get in.
Hmm.
And the others around the SME space is probably around that sort of insight side of things. And I think given like customer and consumer behavior has changed so much over the last sort of 18 months, there's a really good opportunity for companies to, understand how that's changed using data and then be able to adapt their marketing and customer acquisition off the back of that. Like online
Hmm.
shopping has just gone through the roof, obviously, since lockdown and COVID. So those
Hmm.
companies that aren't really understanding from a digital analytics perspective what's going on with their website, are there any kind of funnels or conversion issues, like the more companies can understand about their customers, the more the more personalized their marketing can be. So we're finding that's been a big driver of the digital analytics and the sort of customer insight side of things. It's probably
Hmm.
the second sort of largest growth area that we're seeing in our SME client base.
Okay, so there's opportunities coming along, and then obviously tech is just kind of the start of that. What about the culture change? Obviously, your part of your job is to get the right person for that culture,
Yeah,
but
definitely.
then how does that kind of evolve into
Mm.
making it happen and keeping it going in the right direction?
Yeah, for sure. So, I think you can find the most technical data person out there who, could build the most accurate model for a data science team or, can build the best data warehouse technology for a client. But if they can't sell the benefits to the C suite or to the directors of that company, and again, it's coming down to that sort of tangible benefits, the return on investment. If they don't understand that commercial part, it's a lot
Hmm.
harder to take a non-technical stakeholder on that journey.
Mm.
Whereas if they can really get the technical side, but then translate that into what does that mean to my business from a value perspective, they're the best candidates that we place who have got both sides of that, and they're the ones we find that they'll go into a business and they'll be maybe the first data hire or the first couple, and then you look back at them a year later and there's sort of a team of 8 to 10 there who and
Yeah.
they're all adding value and they're all kind of doing great stuff. So yeah, that's kind of what I see generally.
Oh, good. And then for AdLib, then who gets involved in data in house?
So pretty much our finance director, our marketing director, and then to probably our MD and the other recruitment director. They're probably the main data consumers. From a kind of lower level perspective, us as a management team will review. We have KPIs for our staff, and then we have what a lot of the data we're kind of not really doing well enough in my perspective is, using our CRM and using the functionality we've got in there to understand how many people moved jobs a couple of years ago. They're the people who are probably we should be contacting and finding out whether they're up for moving again at this point. So I
Mm.
think if we could have better insight into the ability to bring back more customer information to be able to then build marketing campaigns off the back of that, that's something that I'm really keen on pushing. in terms of kind of where we're at with stuff, I think again it's a bit of a potential lack of understanding about the return on investment that we could be getting from this, because if we make a couple of placements off the back of doing a data exercise, that could be 5 to 10K's worth of revenue, and if we invest a bit to get that back, for me it's a bit of a no-brainer. I'm having a little bit of struggles kind of with that data literacy side of things, and selling the benefits to those people within my company, but I'll get there. It's just an education piece, I think, and just showing what can be done.
So what's your plan, Alex? How are you going to educate them?
I'm just constantly going to talk about it. At one point I'll get house in. But
soon.
Yeah, I think, as I say, because we've got this CRM data migration coming up, once we've done that, that's the perfect time to say, look, we've put in a new platform, it's got certain reporting and analytics features. What else can we join up with this? Look across, what I want to be able to do is have all of our customer information and be able to cross-reference that against our marketing spend and general kind of, budgets, just to show the potential. If we do a marketing campaign based on this, this is what we could get back, but here's the actual data for it, rather than just me saying it. Exactly. I need a bit of evidence to back it up, and then I think they might listen a little bit more.
And I think to get buy-in as well, it's really good what you mentioned earlier about bringing back to what you actually want to get out of it, what you want the end goal to be. And that helps to get them on board, because it's actually then about thinking, okay, this is where we want to go. How's our data going to help us?
Yeah, exactly. If I can sort of come up with an initiative that's going to drive 50 to 100K extra revenue into the business, then they'll listen. If I can demonstrate it through data. So it's a pet project of mine.
Cool. So what excites you about other businesses you see? Obviously you get insight from a different perspective. What kind of excites you about what you see going on around you?
I'd say what excites me is just seeing the general wave of companies really getting into this. Like, I've been working in analytics recruitment in different guises for the last 11 to 12 years, and the first 6 to 7 years was spent working with investment banks and hedge funds and asset managers, and they were they were out in front way before like a lot of companies were in really using their data to drive revenue increases. And even looking at things like model risk, there's a lot of companies out there that build AI and machine learning models, but they've not taken into consideration the bias or like the potential discrimination that can come off the back of it, or any of the potential issues, whereas the banks are well ahead on that. So in terms of what excites me massively is new novel use cases of machine learning and data science. That kind of cutting edge side of it I find incredibly interesting. It's like peering into the future and seeing what features are going to be within technology products. That's the most exciting thing for me, and just talking to the people that work in those fields. They're just so smart, and like some of the stuff they work on, and you talk to them about it and how it worked and how they did it. I find that part the most interesting, if I'm totally honest. But 80% of my clients aren't ready for that sort of technology because they don't have data, they don't have good data quality, they don't have the technology in place, they don't have enough data that's structured that they can do anything with it. So talking to companies where they're hiring their first data scientists, they're the ones I find the most interesting, because I go really deep into what do you have currently, what are you doing, what technology are you using, and what's the state of your data, and then talking to them about the potential the potential return on investment, or the potential projects a data scientist might work on for them, and what's the low hanging fruit, where's the quickest benefits, and how much would that bring you in as a company. So they're the things that I find the most interesting in this space. It's that kind of when they're at the cutting edge of the data maturity journey, as it were, and what they're looking to do, and what is the art of the possible at that point when they've got everything in place.
Cool. So I think that from exciting to pragmatic, kind of where, if people are sort of thinking, oh, my data quality is just not there, how do you help them?
It's a good question. I think getting someone in to have a look at it is probably the best bet, and that can be in the form of someone like DataCube coming in and doing a bit of an audit in terms of show us your data, let's look at the state of it, or getting in a contractor to do that sort of project. But there's not a huge amount out there for a company that doesn't have anyone that does any sort of data analysis. Just thinking about AdLib, for example, I understand that our data quality isn't sort of good enough potentially, but when it comes to auditing that, I wouldn't really know where to start. I think some education pieces around how to understand your data quality within your business, I think that would be quite a nice thing that would go down quite well. And then when companies have got to that point where, they have enough data to bring out some meaningful insight and analytics, then, then the sky's the limit for them. But until they get to that point, it's like garbage in, garbage out, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's kind of one of the big things that people are trying to overcome as one of the obstacles, and how they get the time to put into that to make it a reality and move it along. And I think sometimes it goes in a too hard box that, oh, not right now. Oh, we need to focus on our day-to-day BAU and get that working and moving ahead. So when is a good time to think about it? Because we always tell clients that today is the easiest day because it's only going to get bigger. Do people sort of put it off?
Yeah, I think people do put it off. I think, it can really just depend on what state your business is in. And especially after the last sort of year and a half, a lot of businesses are just trying to recover, they have certain priorities, which is fair enough. But I agree with you, doing it sooner rather than later means you can unlock the value in it sooner. It means that everything is working smoothly in your business sooner, which can only really benefit it, in my opinion. So yeah, do it today.
Awesome. Good point to end on. Thanks so much for your time, Alex. Really appreciate it.
No worries.
Bring your
Absolute
expertise
pleasure.
into the group, and look forward to speaking to you soon.
Cheers. Right, thank you very much.
Cheers, then. Thank you.
Right.
Bye.